Welcome back to the second term. This term, we'll be looking at what goes on within the four walls of a warehouse and also learn to design a simple warehouse. In today's lecture, we take a look at the strategic roles of warehouses, the different types of warehouses, as well as examine the differences between a public versus a private warehouse. So what is warehousing? Warehousing is the primary link between producers or manufacturers and consumers. Warehousing is the part of a company's supply chain that stores inventory at and between points of origin and points of consumption. This occurs at multiple points, such as at the producers while pending export, at the distributors while pending last mile delivery to retailers, at the retailers' warehouses while pending stocking up of retail stores. What exactly is inventory? Consider a bag of potato chips. The ingredients or raw materials will include potatoes, salt, and pepper. This is the physical supply inventory. For products such as machinery, this could refer to components and parts. The bag of potato chips is the end product or the finished goods. This is the physical distribution inventory. During the process of production, there may also be goods in process inventory, but these typically constitute only a small portion of a company's total inventory. So why do people hold inventory? From a physical supply perspective, this is to maintain a source of supply of necessary raw materials, components, and parts during the process of production. In order to achieve economies of scale, it may be necessary to have a large amount of raw materials to produce large batches of finished goods during each run. Very often, a producer also finds it advantageous to purchase raw materials in bulk for discounts. From a physical distribution perspective, inventory is usually placed at strategic locations near the consumer markets so that it can be supplied to customers in a timely manner. Depending on the product, the customer service levels can require varying delivery lead times. Such inventory serves to buffer against changing market conditions. For example, a company selling winter clothing needs to build out its inventory ahead of the winter season, such that they have adequate inventory for all their stores during the actual season. Overall, it is necessary to hold inventory at various points of supply chain simply to achieve economies of scale in transportation. It will always be more cost-effective to ship an FCL of products than multiple LCL shipments. Basically, holding inventory allows a company to overcome the time and space differentials that exist between producers and consumers. This is especially so in the increasingly globalized supply chain, in which production and consumption happens at various ends of the world. Largely, reaching a balance between a number of warehouses operated and the cost of transportation will help the company to accomplish least total cost logistics. As mentioned earlier, warehouses occur at different points of the supply chain. At the beginning, inbound warehouses are used to consolidate raw materials, components, and parts being delivered by various suppliers. These warehouses are usually co-located with the plant to better support manufacturing. In a different scenario, the inbound warehouse acts as a consolidation warehouse nearer to the suppliers. For example, a company could have a warehouse in an area where many of the suppliers are located. The warehouse receives raw materials from suppliers, which are shipped to them in less than truckload shipments. They then consolidate these materials into full truckloads or even full container loads for shipment to the plant elsewhere in the country or overseas. From the outbound perspective, a mixing warehouse is often required to store an inventory of products manufactured by different plants. This warehouse mixes and matches the products for customer order fulfillment. In a scenario whereby the company deals with only a single homogeneous product, the outbound warehouse will often serve as a break bulk point where large shipments are subdivided into smaller shipments to be sent out to individual customers. In summary, the warehouse function makes it possible for the company to realize cost savings. In procurement, it lets the company take advantage of quantity purchase discounts on raw materials, components, or finished products. In production, long production runs in the plant result in lower per unit costs, although this needs to be balanced against the build-out of larger inventories and increased warehousing requirements. In transportation, the use of mixing warehouses located near customers result in lower transportation costs than direct shipments. Overall, in avoiding stock-out costs, warehousing allows the company to maintain a source of products during shortages, shipment delays, strikes, and unexpected consumer demand. Many factors influence how warehousing is planned and implemented. Top of the list would be the customer's needs and wants. Typically, customers always want their orders delivered fast, they often require value-added services, and it's also become the norm for consumers to demand online order tracking capabilities. From the company's point of view, besides meeting customer expectations, warehousing decisions are made after due consideration of several factors. Firstly, the prevailing economic conditions will strongly influence the decision of where to set up a warehouse. Secondly, the nature of the country and the nature of the industry and profile of the product, such as competition, seasonality, perishability, and obsolescence, determines the number of warehouses and type of warehouses required. Lastly, the company's own operating philosophy and capital availability will largely shape the final outcome. There are many types of warehouses. General warehouses store generic products with no special requirements in ambient conditions. Cold chain warehouses provide temperature control environments for perishable goods such as food and pharmaceuticals. Bonded warehouses store goods like tobacco and alcohol under the control of each country's national customs agency, whereby duties and taxes are not paid until goods are sold. Special bulk commodity warehouses are used for agricultural goods such as grains, wool, and cotton. Special equipment and services may sometimes be required. Bulk storage warehouses provide open or sheltered storage of tanks of liquids or dry products such as coal, sand, and chemicals. Specialized services such as filling of drums may be required. If you recall from the first term, we looked at the concept of the private fleet, which is a fleet of vehicles owned or leased by a company to serve their own transportation needs. The same concept exists for warehousing. Private warehousing refers to a company owning or leasing warehouse space to serve their own storage and fulfillment needs. The alternative is public or contract warehousing, in which the company engages a service provider to meet their needs. Private warehousing can be less costly over the long term than public warehousing. Operating costs can be 15 to 25% lower. However, this is only if the company achieves sufficient throughput or utilization. Generally, a utilization rate of 75 to 80% will make it in favor of private warehousing. If a company cannot achieve this, then it's generally more appropriate to use public warehousing. Public warehouses are able to achieve an economies of scale not possible for a small company as they consolidate the requirements of all their customers. The overheads of fixed building costs and variable labor costs, material handling costs, and facility costs are all shared across different customers. Because of the costs involved, many organizations are simply unable to generate enough capital to build or buy their own warehouse and make the investments necessary to purchase all necessary equipment. A private warehouse is a long-term, often risky investment that may be difficult to sell off later because of its customized design. Startup is often a costly and time-consuming process due to the hiring and training of employees as well as the purchase of equipment. The use of public warehousing requires no such capital investment as all facility and human resources are provided. If a company's operations are subject to seasonality, their private warehouse will have to be designed to accommodate the maximum inventory level. This leads to underutilization during a portion of each year. On the other hand, a public warehousing user can contract as much or as little warehousing space as they need. Of course, this carries a risk of space not being available when and where they want it. Shortages of space do occur, and a company needs to develop good relationships with their service provider to ensure consistent availability of warehousing space at optimum prices. Public warehouses can offer either long-term or short-term contracts. This makes it easy for firms to change warehouse locations due to changes in marketplace, relative costs of transport modes, volumes, or the company's financial position. In addition, a firm that uses public warehouses does not have to hire or lay off employees as business volume changes. Owning or holding a long-term lease on a warehouse can become a burden if business conditions are uncertain and necessitate changes. In private warehousing, the company exercises a greater degree of control over their storage, handling, and management, which allows it to integrate the warehousing function into the company's total logistics system. With control comes the flexibility to design and operate the warehouse to fit the needs of the customers and products. Companies with highly specialized products may find that public warehousing is not as feasible because of facility or material handling limitations. When a company uses a public warehouse, it knows its exact storage and handling costs because it receives a bill each month. They can also forecast costs for different levels of activity because these costs are known in advance. Firms that operate their own facilities often find it very difficult to determine the fixed and variable costs based on variability in volumes. Systems compatibility may also be a problem with public warehouses because not all computer systems are compatible. Some amount of effort and cost is usually necessary to integrate a company system with the public warehouse service provider system to ensure a seamless flow of information. With the advent of EDI and cloud-based applications, this integration is now easier than before. Last but not least, by adopting private warehousing, a company can make greater use of its human resources, develop technical expertise, and generally experience better care in handling and storage functions. With that, we have come to the end of Lecture 11, and we'll see you next time.